Well, better late than never. Sorry, friends. I was away out of town in Wisconsin for the entire end of December and beginning of January, so I never got to film a reading wrap up. So we're here now and we're doing it now. Some of these videos rub me the wrong way because people spend more time complaining about half the books that they read rather than praising the ones that they thought were good. And so instead of doing like the regular end of year book tag thing that's done on here, I'm just going to talk to you about all of my 5-star reads of 2025. So we're going to go in order of how I read them this year. And stay seated because I read 70 books this year and I think that I have 18 5-star reads, which is actually insane. So, starting off strong is the book that I started 2025 with, and arguably my favorite book of the year in my top reads of all time is Daisy Jones and the Six. Yeah, this, to say the least, is an obsession at this point. I have the album. I watched the show. I have plans to read this again very, very soon. I love this book. Um, this book is about a band sort of forming and the trials and tribulations that come with a band and the people in it and the relationships that they have with each other and people outside of that band and what it's like to get big. And I am from a family where my dad is a musician. He's been in bands his entire life, and my boyfriend as well is in a band currently. And let me just say, a lot of books and movies get that whole dynamic incredibly wrong, but this does it to a T. Not to mention that the soundtrack and like the album that's created for the TV show is probably my favorite album that I listened to last year. That's why I bought it. If this band was real, I would be booking tickets. So, if you don't want to read the book, at least, at a minimum, just go listen to the album. Um, yeah. So I read this on my Kindle, and then this was a trophy buy because I needed the book. All right. My second 5-star read of the year was another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. It was Malibu Rising. I went on a Taylor Jenkins Reid kick at the beginning of the year because the last book that I read in 2024 was The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I loved that. So then I just decided to read all the rest of her books. And spoiler alert, they're pretty much all 5-star reads for me. Yeah, this book is really family dynamic focused. So the main characters in this book are all siblings and they all have different interests and things that they do that are making them um like that make their relationships with each other different. But the main focus of this book is this party that they have at the eldest daughter's um house every year. Well, house is a minor way to put that. It's a flippin' mansion. And things go down at this party and leading up to it that really challenge the dynamics of this family. And I just loved yeah, the family drama. It's half the shows that I watch and half the books that I love. So this book didn't fail me there. So number 3 is actually a book that I listened to. So not many audiobooks that I listen to make it into my 5-star reads. I don't know why. I couldn't really tell you why my audiobooks tend to not be 5-star reads. Maybe it's just the type of books that I listen to over audio rather than physically, but anyway, my third 5-star read of the year was Chain Gang All Stars. This book is crazy. It is a sort of dystopian novel where these prisons have like this broadcasted fight to the death to be able to get out of jail. And so it follows these women that are making their way up the chains to like and have survived enough of these fights to be close to being able to fight to the death to be free. And this book made me sad and cry and angry, and it did everything that a book like that is supposed to do. Highly recommend it, and listening to it was also just a fantastic experience. 5-star read number 4 of the year was another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. You got it. Carrie Soto is back. This follows a tennis star and sort of how her relationship was with her father growing up and her comeback into the competitive tennis world. And it sounded so boring. Like the concept of it sounds so bad. But somehow Taylor Jenkins Reid makes it work. And this book was fantastic. Just the dynamics that she has between people and who she is as a person. Carrie Soto herself is a very polarizing person. And so I just really enjoyed reading a book like that. I read this one on my Kindle as well. So book number 5 is actually another audiobook. I listened to Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow, and I loved it. This is following some video game developers and their relationship with each other as they make this game together and how their dynamic shifts as they age and get more popular and things like that. And honestly, this book is just beautiful, and I want to get a physical copy to be able to read and annotate because I think that I would have a new appreciation for it if I was able to read it physically. But even over audio, it was still a 5-star read for me. Now we are getting into a couple interesting 5-star reads. I went on a little listening spree of all of the Hunger Games books because Sunrise on the Reaping came out. I wanted to listen to all of the books before getting to Sunrise on the Reaping, and I did that. And I think 2 of them were 5-star reads for me. The original Hunger Games is still just one of those books that is locked into my brain as such a transformative reading experience for me as a kid, and I have the same appreciation for it now. Even listening to it last year, I just was on the edge of my seat. That book just makes me sob, it makes me feel things, it makes me question the world that we live in today, and I just have such a great appreciation for it. And honestly, all of them sort of borderline on 5-star for me, but the newest one, Sunrise on the Reaping, man, it wrecked me. I am going to sob through the movie that comes out this year. Oh, it's not even funny. It's going to be horrible and wonderful. And this book is just heart-wrenching. This book follows, if you haven't heard, you live under the biggest rock in the world. If you haven't heard, this book follows Haymitch's Hunger Games. So he's a mentor to Katniss and Peeta in the original Hunger Games, but it follows the Hunger Games that he was a part of. And so you know the outcome of this Hunger Games for the most part. Like, you know who wins this Hunger Games because Haymitch is in the earlier books. So he clearly doesn't get bludgeoned to death. However, it ties in all of the political and social sort of issues between the entire series and makes everything just mean so much more. And yeah, it was beautiful and horrible, and I sobbed a lot. And I listened to this and also cannot wait to get physical copies. I have physical copies of like the first 3 Hunger Games books that I bought when they were originally coming out, but I want to get like a grown-up set of all of them. But since Sunrise on the Reaping is new, they don't have sets that have Sunrise on the Reaping included yet. And so I'm just going to wait until they put out a set of those books that has all of them. So, yeah, super exciting. So, I don't remember what book number we're on. But the next 5-star read that I read in 2025 was The Sirens. I read this on my Kindle. I do not own a physical copy of it. But I read Wayward by the same author a couple of years ago, and it is in my probably top 10 favorite books of all time. And Sirens, I don't think quite lived up to the hype that I had for it, but it was still so beautiful and thought provoking that I still rated it 5 stars. So The Sirens is a dual timeline told story. I think that's just what Amelia Hart does best. Since it worked really well for Wayward, and I think that it also worked really well for The Sirens. It follows sets of sisters in both timelines. So, in the more recent timeline, one of these sisters is missing, and the other sister is sort of looking to find her in this like sort of seascapey town where all these men seem to be going missing. And then the other timeline is these two sisters that are being transported across the sea because they are convicted of some crime. And so these timelines weave together, but it takes a while to realize how this all connects. And I think that the way that it's told is really beautiful. And I just like the all the touches on the misogynistic world and what women have to go through just to be seen and heard is, I think, pretty beautiful to read in this book. And so it was a 5 star for me. The next 5-star read that I got is The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers. This is Ashley Flowers' second book. I loved her first book that she wrote. I'm a huge Crime Junkie fan. So if you weren't aware, Ashley Flowers is the host of Crime Junkies. And The Missing Half was really, really interesting. And so this is another sister story. The sister in this book, her sister had gone missing years ago and they haven't figured out what was going on. And then in the current timeline, another girl is missing, and so they're trying to figure out what happened to both of these women. And I ate this book up. It took me like a day and a half to read, and so I rated it 5 stars just because the twists got me, which in a thriller is pretty rare. That's why you probably won't see many thrillers on this list. I have a lot of like 4-star or just like solid 3-star thrillers, but thrillers don't often make my 5-star list because it really has to take some solid twists and turns to get me to rate a thriller 5 stars. I also have to care about the characters, which doesn't happen in like 90% of the thrillers that I read. So this is a good one. Highly recommend it. Next we have 2 of my favorite reads of the year. And probably the most surprising 5-star reads of the year. We've got One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I am not the biggest fantasy person. I am reading the Fourth Wing series with everyone else because why not? Everyone else has read it and I want to be able to talk about books with people. So I've read those. But beyond that, I don't tend to pick up fantasy unless it's like a historical fantasy, kind of like The Sirens or Wayward, or like fantasy with some realism, like magical realism. So me picking up these books was a bit unpredictable. However, these characters and the magic system in this book, so cool. So the magic system in these books is playing card magic. So there are these sort of playing cards, sort of like they look kind of like tarot cards, and these cards have magic powers. But there are different. There's like, are there 13? Why don't I remember how many cards there are? Anyway, each of these, like, the cards all have unique magic abilities, and you have to have the card in your possession to be able to wield that magic. And so there's this big fight to be able to acquire all of these cards for certain reasons. And I think that's about all I can say about this. But I just thought that the magic system of those cards was really unique and cool to read about. And yeah, these books kind of became my personality for like a month there. But yeah, I loved them. So 5 stars. I think you know the drill by now. The next book was written by, yeah, Taylor Jenkins Reid. I can't. Her books just make me sob and think and care about the characters to a level that other books just haven't. So if you've got any author recommendations for a Taylor Jenkins Reid obsessed person, send them my way, because Atmosphere that came out in 2025 was also a 5 star read for me. This book is about a female astronaut trying to go to space. It is a queer romance novel, and people felt ways about this being a romance, as if all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's other books weren't inundated with romance. I don't know what they've been reading, but the relationships in Taylor Jenkins Reid's books are what makes these books. So the fact that there was a queer romance, I think, just tickled people's fancies in a way that they didn't like. But I loved it. It was beautiful, made me sob. I loved the characters and their relationships with family. And that's really all I have to say about that. Next, we have the only other thriller on this list. We've got The Only One Left. This is a Riley Sager novel. I have read a couple other Riley Sager books, and this is by far my favorite one. Basically, the premise of this is this woman goes to work as a caretaker for this older woman that can't speak or do much of anything. And she is known to everyone in this town because she was, like, pretty much everyone thinks that when she was young, she murdered her entire family. And so things go down so many twists, and I saw pretty much none of them come in. So highly recommend this if you like a twisty thriller. And the vibes were immaculate, like cliff on a, or how mansion on a cliff. The mansion's kind of falling apart. Just solid, solid vibes. Next, we have another one of my favorite books of 2025. It's The Names. I can't hype this book up enough. And when I saw it on the Goodreads Choice Awards this year, I was so happy, even though it didn't win, I'm pretty sure. But The Names is about this family, and they are having a baby boy, and the mom, dad, and their daughter all have a different name that they want to name this kid. And so the book follows, it's like a 35 or something year time span, with 3 separate timelines all happening like at the same time, of what life would look like with, if they had named the boy those 3 different things. Does that make any sense? I hope that makes sense. But yeah, so each timeline is told where there's like a chapter for the name that the mom wanted, a chapter for the name the dad wanted, and a chapter for the name the sister wanted. And then there's a time jump, and you get those same 3 things. And so I just thought that this was really unique and sort of not just about like the importance of a name. I think that's what a lot of people think that they're going to get with this book, but I think it's more of how one simple decision can change so many things, and how, I don't know, I have an anxiety riddled brain that likes to sort of think about how one simple decision I make could have a huge impact on my life or others' lives. And I think this book gets across that feeling in a very severe way. But yeah, I think it was interesting all the same. So yeah, that was one of my favorite books that I read this year. And I'm pretty sure it was a debut novel, which is also super, super impressive and cool because now I get to look forward to anything else that this author writes. So the next one that we've got is The Night and the Moth. After reading One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, I had to pick up Rachel Gillig's newest book that was released in 2025. And this one, let me tell you, I cannot wait for the next one. I think that if I had to compare this to One Dark Window, I would still like One Dark Window more so far, but I think that this has the potential to have a better second book, if that makes sense. So, The Night and the Moth is about this diviner. There are, in this world, there are diviners that drown in this river and can sort of tell the fortune of the person in front of them when they're doing this whole drowning ritual that people pay for. And so this diviner is told to divine for this new king that people aren't really seeming to take seriously. And then when that king comes, he brings this knight, and this knight is a sort of, I don't know. I don't know how to describe him. He's sort of like a rugged, sort of all sucks, sort of broody guy. And they sort of end up developing this, like, not friendship. I don't really know what you would call it at first, but they sort of end up developing this secret thing while the knight and the king are in town, where this diviner wants to know more about the outside world because after she has served her sentence, she gets to be free. But then when all of her fellow diviners start disappearing, things take a turn, and she goes off with this knight to figure out what's going on. And so this book is really, really interesting and unique. And I also like the adventure aspect of it. So, without saying too much, they have to sort of go on these little quests to find things. And I like that in a book. Some people hate it. I love it. I like the adventure aspect, the changing location, the like sort of smaller tasks built into this one big idea. And so I thought that was really fun to read, and I cannot wait for the next one. The next 5-star read we've got is one that I listened to. It's actually the last audiobook on this list. It is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which makes my brain turn into scrambled eggs every time I have to say it. But this book is just joy in a book. I read it at the perfect time, perfect season. I actually just I I think it's just a beautiful, cozy book that could cure me of any sort of bad feelings towards life that I've got. And I needed that at the time, which is why I think this was ranked as high as it was for me. So what's going on in this world is that obviously witches are supposed to be secret, but this witch is, even though the witches know who the other witches are, they're not supposed to like congregate or have any sort of like coven or anything like that. But she does these little videos online pretending to be a witch. Well, one day this dude reaches out to her and wants her to come and be a caretaker for, or more of like a teacher to these 3 young witches that are all living together, which she then goes, well, they're not supposed to be living together. How do we not know about this? But she does it regardless. And it is the most beautiful found family, cozy, witchy book that you could read. And I need to read the other book by this author. I can't remember what it is. Something about innkeeping. I'll put a picture of it up here. But yeah, I'm excited to read this one, hopefully around the same time this year. The next book that I read is also, I keep saying this, but the next book that was 5 stars for me is one of my favorite books that I read this year. And I mean it severely with this one. It is The Lamb by Lucy Rose. This book is horribly disgusting and beautiful. I think that's the best way to describe it. It is folk horror, um, and it is told from the perspective of this young girl living with her mother, and they are cannibals. And I think that the most interesting thing about this book is the fact that it is told from that child's perspective. And so you almost feel bad for this little girl because she knows that what they're doing is wrong, but doesn't really know how to fix it, loves her mom, wants her mom to love her, but their dynamic is made so much more complicated because of this cannibalistic tendency. And so I thought this book was stunning and revolting. And yeah, I loved it. It was an easy 5 star rating for me because of that. Last but not least, rounding out my 5 star reads, we've got The Hounding. This was an Aardvark book box pick. It's about 80% of the reason why I got the Aardvark book box in the first place, because I figured that I would love this book, and I do. This book is about 5 sisters, and the town that they live in thinks that they are turning into dogs. Certain people start spreading all of these rumors about these girls, and honestly, it's similar to the Sirens in a way where it's like women just want to be free and want to live out their lives, and men like to find a way to try and wreck it. I think that the reason that this was so successful for me was because of the POV. So this was told from the perspective of a bunch of different people in the town, but not from the perspective of the girls that are the center of the story. And so you really get a full immersive sense of what this town thinks about these girls. And some of the thoughts are infuriating. Some of them you're like, hopeful about. You hope that some of these perspectives will just speak up and be more of a voice for these girls. And yeah, and others make you kind of heartbroken about what these girls have gone through, like the perspective of their grandfather that they currently live with. And so I just think that this book was really well written, and it was very short and did a lot with the amount of pages that it had. This book was actually the inspiration for me to really take my book journaling and things seriously in 2026. And so I did just want to talk about what my 2026 reading plans are. I'm not super strict about like the amount of books that I read. I think 66 was my goal for 2026 that I put into Goodreads. But if I don't reach that goal, or if I read way more, then whatever, it's fine. But this year, what I do want to do is keep more of a physical journal about what I am reading and rating and thinking. And so um, I bought this handy dandy little Illustrum notebook. It's a planner technically, but I'm going to use it as a journal. And so there's a weekly spread on one side and then just a blank spread on the other side for each like page spread. And for the weekly side, I've never been like a journaling girly, like sit down and write all my thoughts. But I think just putting in like a quick little thought each day would be very manageable for me. And then on the right hand side, I want to put pictures of things that I did during that week, or if I finished a book, I want to put little book reviews on that side. And I think that that's going to be a really fun way for me to be able to keep track of my reading, be able to make it fun and aesthetic and make it so that I have an end product that is my whole year of me, my accomplishments, and my reading. And so that's my plan. It is currently January 6th, and all of the journaling supplies that I ordered for this come in the mail between today and tomorrow, just like washi tapes and little like those like tape roller things so that I can put things in here easier. But yeah, so I'm sure that videos will come that show updates on that. But that is my reading goal for 2026, is to really be intentional on my reviews and my reading. And I want to get into annotating, but that also kind of scares me as a whole. But we'll see. So thank you for listening to all of my 5-star reads and listening to me ramble about why I liked them. If you have any recommendations that sort of fit along the theme of any of these books that I talked about, please let me know in the comments below. I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.